Now, your weekly dose of inspiration, perspiration, and just the right amount of bull defecation. The Get You Some Radio Show with your host, the Vice President of Making Shit Happen, Terry Lancaster.
Any good to be alive and living in Tennessee? Welcome to episode 6 of the Get You Some Radio Show. Yum, get you some. Episode 6, got Doug Sandler on the show today. Glad to have Doug on here with us. Doug's a best-selling author. He's the author of the #1 bestseller, Nice Guys Finish First. He's the co-host of the Nice Guys on Business podcast. And Doug and I talk about career turning points. We talk about retirement, how if you're about 50 years old, you're probably just as close to the beginning as you are to the end. We talk about the true nature of success, and we talk about the value of relationships and authenticity. Best of all, Doug's going to give you a chance to take home absolutely free, no obligations. You don't even need to send him your email. Got a free 30-day Nice Guy Challenge so you can improve your relationships and your bottom line. I'm going to talk more about Doug in just a second. But first, got to talk about the playoff beard. Man, this is episode 6. Never intended to do 6 episodes of my brand new video podcast with a scruffy playoff beard and a Predators jersey, but the Predators keep on keeping on. We are now in round 3, the Western Conference Finals. We're playing the Anaheim Ducks, and right now, as I record this, we are tied in the series 1-1, one game each. Predators have never made it in this far in the playoffs, and my playoff beard has never made it this far. Each week, it's not getting longer, it's not getting fuller, but it is getting scragglier and scruffier. The wife's starting to complain a little bit. So I got that going on. So Preds, I'm in it for you. Keep on doing what you do. We're going to do I'm going to do a video time delay. I think when I get when we win the cup, we're going to take this all the way, and I'll have 8 or 9 episodes, and I'll have the full time delay of the life and the scruffiness that is Terry. So go Preds versus the Anaheim Ducks this week. Congratulations to our subscriber of the week, Joy Luke. Joy Luke's in Ville Platte, Louisiana, and she is our subscriber of the week and a winner of a copy of my #1 best-selling book, Better Self-Help for the Rest of Us. Joy, be looking for that in the mail. And if you want to win, if you want a copy of the book, if you want some Get You Some radio show swag, you can't win if you don't play, and you can't be subscriber of the week unless you subscribe. So you need to head on over to terrylancaster.tv, terrylancaster.tv. Click the big red button that's going to be just above my head when you get there. terrylancaster.tv. Click the big red button and subscribe. So I'm real excited to talk to my buddy Doug Sandler today. We hit hard on a lot of the areas that I like to talk about, a lot of the areas that I talk about in the book, a lot of the areas that I talk about on the Get You Some radio show each and every week about creating health, happiness, and prosperity. Doug and I especially, we talked today about starting where you are, about not waiting for the perfect moment, but just to get started where you are, and then the power of telling your story authentically, and most importantly, separating the results from the actions. Doug's got a chart that he shows. He did his podcast for a year and a half, to little attention, and he was just chugging along. There wasn't a huge amount of growth, and it wasn't just taking off, but he was putting in the work each and every week. He was cranking out new content each and every week, making new connections each and every week. And it goes along, and you've got the chart on it. It goes along for about a year and a half, and then it takes off just like a hockey stick. The moment when everything fell into place, when all the hard work showed up. And we're going to talk about this, whether it's you're starting a podcast, or you're just starting out in the world of sales, or you're trying to lose 20 pounds, whatever you're trying to do, whatever goals you end up setting, we get lost in the objectives a lot of time. And everyone wants to talk about, how much weight have you lost? And your boss wants to talk about, how many widgets did you sell? And nobody really wants to talk about the steps that got there to it. How many steps did you take today? How many miles did you run today? How many phone calls did you make today? Talk about all the actions. How many podcasts did you produce this week? Talk about the actions that go in just doing the right thing. Consistent actions, not necessarily huge consistent actions, but small consistent actions over time. And the power of that is monumental. And Doug's living proof of that. Everyone wants to talk about the results because that's what looks good on magazine covers. But no one wants to talk about the work. Putting the work in, nose to the grindstone, day in and day out. But the work, the work is what makes shit happen. I'll be back with Doug Sandler right after this.
If you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, if you're struggling to be perfect, hoping for average, and settling for anything less than the life you were born to lead, you can do better. Better. Self-help for the rest of us. The groundbreaking new personal development book from Terry Lancaster. Get your free copy today at terrylancaster.com.
So you know how in all the commercials they have the fast-talking guy at the very end and he gives you all the important information? Well, I'm going to give you the disclaimer right up front. This book will not make you a millionaire or a movie star. It's not going to give you six-pack abs, and it's not going to give you gleaming white, perfectly straight teeth. But perfection is overrated. It's a fantasy, and it doesn't exist in nature. What this book will do is give you proven strategies for making your actual life better. You can build a better life, one better decision at a time.
Better. Self-help for the rest of us. Get your free copy today at terrylancaster.com. Get You Some Radio.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Get You Some Radio Show studio. I am Terry Lancaster. I'm super excited about today's guest. Today's guest is big time. First of all, best-selling book, Nice Guys Finish First. Want to talk to him about that. Second of all, he's got a huge podcast of 500,000 downloads and just named by Inc. Magazine as one of the top 12 business podcasts in the country. And that's Nice Guys on Business with him and his partner, Strickland Bonner. But today's guest, give him a big round of applause, Doug Sandler. Dougie, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing. So wait, I got 3 supers. That's even 2 more than my mom usually. 2 more than my mom usually gives me.
Yeah, your mom's seen some stuff that I don't want to know about, Doug. So.
Oh, that's probably true. No, good to be here, Terry. Thank you, and congratulations on your semi-new show. It's not so new anymore. I was trying to be the first guest, but now I understand I'm like, what, number 117?
You are actually my 4th official interview that I'm doing right now. I had a couple of beta tests that we did of some interviews that I had done, and I'm just getting my feet under me, getting my feet wet, trying to be like Doug, and just be really getting used to it. Now, you're one of the first ones I reached out to. Wanted to make sure we got you on here, so I'm excited to have you.
Hey, thanks, Terry. And heaven help you if I'm one of your role models that you're shooting for, brother. Well, let me give you somebody else I think might be able to be a better role model than me.
Hey, I think you got it covered, baby. The DJ Doug is what moved me in. So tell everybody how you go from DJ Doug to C-suite executives. That's the arc I want to hear. DJ Doug to C-suite executives.
Well, the funny story is, and I'll give you the 30-second encapsulated version. I met with my financial planner. This is probably March of 2013. So this is 4 years ago, a little over 4 years ago. Sat down with him and he said, hey, you're in a business dominated by 20-somethings with names like Fresh and Glide and Ish and Tigger and all of these guys. He said, you're DJ Doug. I mean, see that? You see my license plate, DJ Doug. I mean, that's who I was. So he said, hey, just be on the lookout for another opportunity that's out there. I happened to see this guy. His name is Ryan Estes, who's a very good friend of mine, professional friend. And he was speaking at a conference for catering executives and those in the events business. And it wasn't necessarily the message that he presented, but the way he presented it. And I said, I can do that. I can be that guy on stage.
Yeah.
And I took my DJ business and all the skill sets that I learned from commanding a crowd and running through music and just use my message instead. So all of the lessons that I've learned along the way, those are all things that I use in my new business, this reinvention of me just a few short years ago, and have been loving this journey ever since.
So let me ask you a question. This is you're not a lady friend, so I can ask you without being ashamed and embarrassed. How old a man are you, Doug?
Well, my co-host won't let me say when I'm on the air with him. He always beeps it out. I don't know why, but I'm 52 years old. So at 47, I reinvented myself. And it's been like I said, it's been a great ride. And it's a scary and humbling thing. I know you have a lot of people in your audience that probably are feeling like, I really want to do what I really want to do. How are you, first of all, with expletives on your show?
Well, right before you came on, I was introduced as the vice president of making shit happen. So have at it, bro.
Okay, that's good. That's good. So what I would say to your listeners is if you don't like what you're doing, get the fuck out. That's what I would tell you. And find something that you love doing. And the other thing that's really challenging about that is if you don't like what you're doing, you're making a whole bunch of other people miserable in the process too. So figure out some other way. And for me, while I love the DJ business, it was a means to an ends for me. And I needed to find what is that tool, what is that vehicle that I'm going to use to carry me from my 50s to retirement if I ever want to retire. You and I just had this conversation before we opened up the recording platform here, but it is what do you want to do to the day that you die? I don't see myself retiring. I just want to do something that I can feel comfortable with for my entire life. And I think this next phase of my life in this world can get me there.
So many people, they reach our age and they start wanting to wind down, and my parents, when they reach 60, when they hit 50, I'm 52 as well. When they hit 52, they were looking towards 62 and winding things down. But, I plan on living another 30, 40 years and hopefully, and since I don't dig ditches for a living, I can be productive for another 30 or 40 years. And I think around the age of 50, I've loved being 50 years old. It gives you some freedom and you can start thinking about, what's next. And I tell everyone, don't think about winding down. Think how you can get this cranked up.
Well, and you did it the right way also. I mean, I see that over the last few years, you went through some major changes in your life, not only with your career, but physically. I mean, you lost a lot of weight. You lightened up the drinking load. You probably stopped a bunch of other stuff that wasn't good for your health. I find that if you put yourself in a position to start doing some better habits, those things become infectious for the rest of your life. And all of those things that you do then start to fall into play. And the good things start to happen rather than the ailments start to happen. And that's when you get into your 50s, I think you got to think that when you're in your 30s and you think that you're invincible, or in your 20s and you think you're immortal, those are the things that really challenge you as you get into your 50s, where I am now, and start to feel like I have, you want to talk about immortal or mortal. When I wake up in the morning, the snap, crackle, and pop is immortality that's going away.
Yeah, you can hear the years when that starts to happen. You know what's going on.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I think it all bleeds over into every area of your life, and being a more responsible with your health and taking care of yourself, and being an overall better person leads right into what you talked about. The nice guys finish first, and I'm in sales. I've always been in sales, and no matter what business you're in sales, and whether you're selling DJ services or selling books, you're selling something.
Right.
And I don't know where the idea came that you had to be a jerkwad to be in sales, because I've always found exactly the opposite.
Well, I find the same thing. I wrote this book a couple of years ago called "Nice Guys Finish First," and in chapter 1, at the lead-in of the book, I wrote a quote by a guy named Gary Shandling. He's a comedian that has since gone on to the better world. But in Gary's quote, he says, "If you don't think nice guys finish first, then you don't know where the finish line is." And for me, it really is defining what you believe success really is. Is success dollars for you? Is it is it increased time in your life? Is it doing what you love when you want to love it, or when you want to, with whom you want? I think that too many people set the false expectation of what success and what that finish line really is. And sometimes it's not just the difference between being nice or being an ass. It could be being successful and being not successful just based upon the way you define who you are in life. And I want to come up with a better definition for people, and that's what I help them do it through my consulting services as well.
Yeah, well, that's the Get You Some radio show. I tell everyone right off the bat, Get You Some is for salespeople, but it's not about sales and about money. It's about getting some, the sum being health, happiness, and prosperity, creating a better life and in all facets of your life, because if you're a millionaire and miserable, I just don't want anything to do with it.
I know plenty of people that have a lot of money that aren't happy. And I know plenty of people that have no money and that are extremely happy. Money is not why we start to put money as the indicator of success. I think that we oftentimes forget that there are many definitions of success. And if you only rely upon the materialistic things in your life, you probably aren't moving in the right direction.
And so the Nice Guys finished first. That book that turned into the podcast, Nice Guys on Business. And I love the format. You and Strickland do this. Because there aren't many like that. You actually have someone there with you, and there's back and forth, and it's not you sitting in a room in your underwear talking into a microphone, kind of like we got going on here. But I mean, I love that you've got someone that you're doing with that. So tell us about the show.
Sure. The show came as a brainchild of mine to try to figure out how I can amplify my Nice Guys message a little bit louder. I just released the book. I was trying to figure out a platform to express the book a little bit deeper. And what I didn't realize is exactly what was going to happen with the podcast. The podcast has actually become the hub by which all of my business is generated. So whether it's speaking business, or my book sales, or my online training, or my podcasting business, any number of different services that I offer, they are all now a part of the book. A part of the podcast. Simply put, we have industry leaders come on the show. We talk about the things that have made them successful, but we do it in an entertaining way. So there is no canned Q&A. There is no formula for how we ask the questions. It really is again, pardon the expression, it's a balls to the wall. Let's chat about what shit comes up as shit comes up. And we just really have a down home conversation in real words, because people want actionable items. They want to hear what it is, the struggles that people went through. They don't want to hear about the victories. I find that the most successful guests on the show are actually the ones that are just like you and me, Terry. We're just like normal guys that are running a show. The ones that come on that are the big names. A guy like Gary Vaynerchuk, he was great to have him on the show, and Ariana Huffington, great to have her on the show. But they don't do much for help. I mean, there's not a lot of reality that people can. They like their message, but they don't relate to their content. Yeah. A guy like you coming on the show that talks about how much weight did you lose, Terry?
I dropped about 60 pounds in about a year, kept it off now for about 4 years. I'm still a chunky guy, but I'm the healthiest chunk ball you've ever seen. So.
I mean, that's the kind of story, the 60-pound loss and the struggle and the things that you've been through, the reinvention of your career just a few years ago as well. Yeah. I mean, all of those things, the TEDx speaker, all of the stuff that you've been through, that's the stuff people want to hear about. And that's the stuff I relate to the most. And that's the stuff I love hearing about when I'm doing my podcast and interviewing people. So that's what the show is all about. And that's kind of what everything's all about for me.
Well, I think authenticity sells. If people, if they put you up on a pedestal, they're never going to see how they get there from here. And
I agree.
So I like to talk about where I come from and how I'm doing these things, because it's something that other people can do. And just like the podcast, I'm doing the podcast now. I'm sitting in my bedroom with the thing behind me, and I've got some lights and the cameras, but it's nothing fancy. It didn't take $1 million to get into the business, and it's something anyone, whether they're selling cars or selling insurance or selling real estate or selling DJ services or selling speaker services or selling a book, it's something anyone can do to start getting their message out there. So,
well, one of the things I always talk to people, as I have been very fortunate, I have a chance to talk to many audiences across the country. And one of the things that I find is a common element is that there are so many things in all of our careers, whether you're in sales or marketing, or whether you're in the auto business or in HVAC, doesn't matter what industry you're in. Relationships are the key to building business. If you have a great network and you have great relationship building skills, you can take that from industry to industry and do a bang up job no matter what you do. And that's been very fortunate for me, in that whether I'm in the podcasting space, I didn't even know what a podcast was before I opened up the microphone for the first time on my show. I had listened to maybe 2 or 3 of them before I even opened up my shop as a podcaster. And that really, it doesn't matter. You don't have to know about podcasting. You don't have to know about how to write a book. You don't have to know about professional speaking. If you're a good relationship builder, that skill set will translate into any business that you do.
Yeah, it's I'm a Dale Carnegie person that gone through the course a couple of times, taught the course a couple of times, and Dale Carnegie says that 85% of your success in any business is going to be determined by your people skills, your ability to convince and convert other people to your way of thinking and just communicating back and forth.
Yep, agreed.
Yeah. So how can someone who is selling a local product, a local service, they're not trying to be Gary Vaynerchuk. They're just trying to sell more HVAC units. Well, how can podcasting help them out? What other things can they be doing to start building their network and reaching more people and communicating and converting?
We found a common element between everybody that was coming on our show, and is that they have a message. And so no matter if you're a regional guy or you're somebody that has an international product or service or an online set product or service that you can sell, everybody's got a message. So what we do, we created a company called the Turnkey Podcast Company. It's just at turnkeypodcast.com. People can get on our site. They can, we create a season of podcasts for them. So if they're a regional company, like somebody that's in the auto business, they want to be perceived as the expert in their field so that people will look at them as an expert and hire them for their services or go to them to their shops. And we create the season of podcasts, whether it's 3 episodes, 4 episodes, 10 episodes, doesn't matter. We'll create a custom package for them to actually get their message out, and we'll help them market it too. So creative marketing package that they can put together.
And just communicating and building their local local network. So what else you got going? C-suite executives. The podcast rolled into that, and the C-suite executives is like this mega network of big time podcasts.
Yeah, what was great about the relationship that I built over there, a guy that was on the show, his name is Jeffrey Hazlett. Jeffrey is the CEO of the C-suite network, and he has it's a conglomerate of a whole bunch of different things, but ultimately what it comes down to is it's 500,000 C-level execs, and these C-level execs own businesses, run businesses, manage businesses, and the way that I approached him is he was a guest on my show. So after he came on the show, I kind of liked what he was all about. He said he was building a podcast network. What was the expression? Would your mom always tell you, be careful what you ask for, you may get it?
Exactly.
So I said to Jeffrey after he came on the show, hey, it'd be really cool. I'd love to have a chance to running a network like that. He came into DC, which is where I live, probably about 6 months later. And he said, we're putting together this podcast network. We'd really love to have you run it. And he made me an offer that I couldn't refuse. Yeah. And so we have 30 some odd shows on this network right now, and it's booming. It's doing a great job, and I'm enjoying not only the network itself, but the relationships that I've made in the network as well.
Yeah, that's what I found. I started this whole adventure last year when the book came out, and like you, I didn't know what a podcast was. I thought a podcast was a guy who bought a microphone sitting in his basement pretending he was on the radio, and so I started appearing on these podcasts to talk about the book, and had such a great time. And then I decided I wanted to do this on my own and hear some other people's stories instead of me telling the same stories again. But the biggest benefit I've got is the people that I've met. I've met some great people, some big time authors and experts and trainers and speakers. And I found out that they're all good people. They're all nice guys. And just like you. And that's increased my visibility just from building up my network of people I know, whether it's about business or not.
It's really interesting. Like I said earlier, the podcast has become the hub of my entire business. We're now on, I think, close to episode 370 of our podcast. Yeah. We've done probably 300 interviews over that time, and I've met some amazing people. I think you came actually before the podcast, or maybe at the same time a couple of years ago. I think you and I met, and I've been watching your journey, and it's been impressive to watch. And it's always good knowing that I got a guy in my corner as cheering me on, and I hope you feel the same way about me. I'm always cheering you on. I see what you're doing, and I love the work that you're doing.
Yeah, I was actually on episode number 98, and I remember I was on episode number 98. And then episode 99 was Dan Harris from ABC News. I go, well, how did that happen?
Podcasting is the greatest equalizer of all time. See, we parlayed your amazing appearance onto getting Dan Harris on the show. And you know what? I love Dan, and it was great to have him on the show, and I've had a relationship with him since. But you're the key. Yeah, you're the guy. I mean, that's exactly I'd much rather have a Terry Lancaster necessarily than a Dan Harris. I love Dan, but you've done more for my business and amplifying my message than Dan has.
Yeah. Well, and again, I think that's the whole point is showing everyone that anything can happen, and you don't have to be Dan Harris and Gary Vaynerchuk and just like we were talking before the camera started rolling. Just throw some shit against the wall and see what sticks. I mean, you never know.
Yeah, the problem is when too much stuff sticks, and then now you're as busy as you can possibly be. And I feel very fortunate. I am extremely busy, but I don't. It's almost like I don't want to be quite this busy. I'd like to be a little less busy and a little more profitable.
Yeah, well, you're preaching to the choir, my friend. Yeah. I've got all this stuff happening, amazing stuff that's happening, and it's it's not the Ferraris aren't pulling up in the driveway just yet. But
yeah, well, mine's being serviced right now, so I'm working on figuring out a different plan right now.
All right, so let's talk about the people listening. One of the things I promise everyone is you're going to get an action step. If you watch the show, you're going to get an action step that you can take away, that you can turn off the monitor, you can put down the phone, and you can do this step today to start building a better life and a better business. And hopefully you can do it again today and tomorrow and the next day and next week, turn it into a habit. And if you start getting enough of these little habits in together, there's no telling what can be happening. You could be on Doug Sandler's podcast if you just turn enough little habits into each other. So what's your action step that folks can start taking today to turn their life around?
I'm afraid that you can't just hold me to one.
Oh, all right. Let's go.
So I have this program. It's a free program, and I track a lot of people that do it. And you are welcome to trail along with me. Anybody that emails me at doug@dougsandler.com is welcome to get the actual PDF version of this. But the program is called the Nice Guy 30. It's a 30-day process in which you will become nicer, more successful, and a better networker. And here's all you do. Are you ready? Here comes the rocket science.
Let's go.
For the next 30 days, you're going to return every phone call. You're going to return every email. You're going to be on time to every appointment. Okay. So those are three things that most people just can't seem to get right. Return your calls, return your emails, be on time for every appointment. The next thing that you're going to do, you got to make sure if you don't do this, it's not going to work. You need to reach out twice a day to people that you haven't communicated with in the last 30 days. Okay. And if you do those four things so far, you're returning your calls, you're returning your emails, you're being on time every time. Okay. You're going to reach out twice a day. Okay. So we got four of these so far.
Yeah.
Okay. You need to deliver on every promise that you deliver. That's number 5. It's it. That is it. If you can do those 5 things. So in other words, you're not going to exaggerate. If you say, I'm going to return your call in 5 minutes, it means you're actually going to return your call in 5 minutes. You say you're going to be on time, you're going to be on time. If you have that proposal on the desk by 5 o'clock, you have to. You're going to catch yourself how many times you're actually not telling the truth. I'm not going to say you're lying, but most people my mom calls it using the truth with reckless abandon. Fudging. Okay. So those 5 things, if you do that for a 30-day period of time, you have set in stone the proper habits in which to be successful at anything that you do. It's as simple as returning your calls, your emails, and being on time for your appointments. Yeah. But go beyond that and tell the truth every time. I mean, that's important. And then the key is that last one, which was reach out twice a day to people that are in your network that you haven't communicated with in the last 30 days.
Man, Doug, you sound like my grandma. Be nice. Do what you say you're going to do. Just, everything I need to know I learned in kindergarten.
Before I started my business, it was be nice, return your phone calls, and tell the truth. I mean, it was the Nice Guy 3. I mean, but we live in a technology world, so it's a little bit more complicated now, but it is the simplest yet the most challenging thing for people to do, just returning phone calls. And people always say, well, I get a lot of telemarketing calls. I get a lot of spam. Fine. Don't return your telemarketing calls or spam, but I challenge you to return every phone call that you get. And whatever it means to be in the expectation of your customer. So if it means returning it in 24 hours, 10 hours, whatever it is that you have to do, just do that. But those 5 things are really the key to success in any business that you do.
All right. So how do we get on that? Email you, Doug@DougSandler.com.
Doug@DougSandler.com will get you there. If you just want to go to my website at DougSandler.com, you can just type in the little search box NG30, and that will get the downloaded program for you. You don't even need to email me if you don't want to. You can get it right from my website.
Just download it there. Well, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to return every phone call. So. All right, I got some phone calls to return. Doug, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you for everything. I've known you about a year and a half, and I've enjoyed every minute of it. It's been a blast. I think everyone should know Doug Sandler. So thank you for everything. Is there anything else you want to leave the peoples with?
No, man, Terry, you're doing a great job. You are the guy that everybody should be holding on to your coattails. I've been enjoying watching the run, and I always tell everybody, don't worry about the money right now. The money will come, and I sometimes have to tell myself that lesson on a regular basis, but I tell you that, and I tell your listeners that too. Do what you love. The money will come. It's just a matter of time. All right. Thanks, Doug. Thanks for being on. We'll see you around, buddy. Thanks, Terry. Thanks again.
The Get You Some Radio Show. Yum, yum, get you some. Get you some.
All right. Doug Sandler on the Get You Some Radio Show. So how nice is that? Doug is a nice guy. And I don't know what you do for a living. I don't know where you are in your life, but I promise you, you need more Doug in your life. Reach out, connect with him, download his information, listen to what the man says. Doug Sandler. Be sure to tune in next week on the Get You Some Radio Show. Chip Eichelberger. Chip Eichelberger is one of the top 5 motivational speakers in the country, and he's going to be here talking to you on the Get You Some Radio Show. I'll see you then.
Get You Some Radio. You've been listening to the Get You Some Radio Show. Subscribe today at terrylancaster.tv to hear more episodes, win valuable cash and prizes, and get free training to help you create an army of buyers who know, like, and trust you before they've ever even met you. It's a big, wide world, boys and girls. Get out there and get you some.